We're going to call the special meeting for Akron City Council to order. Clerk will read the roll.
Baylor. I think you might be muted.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm
Connor.
trying to do that.
Connor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Neal. Neal.
Here.
Thank you. Amobian.
Here.
Samples.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Swirsky.
Here.
All members are present.
At this time, I'm going to ask if we can please have a motion to suspend all council rules that require us to meet in person and have in-person voting. Councilman Fusco.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules on in-person voting and everything else you mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much. So we do have a motion on the floor. Can we please get a second by Councilman McKittrick?
Second.
Roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Samples.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
Motion passes 13-0.
At this time, can we please have a motion to approve the minutes from our previously held meeting? Councilman Fusco.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
Thank you. Have a motion on the floor. Can we get a second by Councilman Lombardo?
I second that.
Roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Samples.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
Passes 13-0.
Aye.
On this evening, we do have 3 public hearings. So we're going to ask if our clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, June 22nd, 2020, during the special meeting of council at 7 p.m. This was later re-advertised for tonight. Ordinance approving the 2020 Consolidated Action Plan and 2020 to 2024 Consolidated Plan, including applications and certifications from the Community Development Block Grant, Community Development, the Home Investment Program or Partnership Home, and Emergency Solutions Grant ESG programs, authorizing the Director of Planning and Urban Development to enter into all necessary contracts for the operation and term of the programs and declaring an emergency.
Thank you so much. We actually don't have anyone registered to speak on this particular item. I don't know if Helen Tomic, did you have any additional comments to share at this time?
I'd like to read in what our application is going to entail. Good evening, Madam President and committee members. The City of Akron's 2020 Annual Consolidated Plan prioritizes a budget for the expenditure of the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Home Investment Partnership Grant Program, and the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. The goals of the program are to assist primarily low and moderate income persons, to improve existing housing development, and to expand affordable housing, expand our economic development opportunities, and to aid the homeless. In 2020, the City of Akron anticipates on receiving $8.6 million, approximately $1.6 million in community development block grant funds, $1.4 million in home funds, and $530,000 in ESG funds for the homeless. The plan includes recommendations for the continuation of Akron's housing program, continuing new housing construction, improvements to parks and community centers, supporting nonprofit community housing development organizations, supporting the minor home repair program, assisting local emergency and transitional housing programs, supporting our community services program, and ongoing support for the Great Streets Initiative. The consolidated strategy includes a narrative describing the housing needs of the low-income families, homeless individuals, and others with special needs that require supportive services. This is a one-year budget. We anticipate on submitting the budget to the Department of Housing and Urban Development within the next 2 weeks and receiving our funds within the next 6 weeks. We respectfully request this item be passed as suspension of the rules.
Thank you so much. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. I believe we have to ask if it's up to law department, but this is a public hearing. Ask for comments, even though no one's registered. Do we still have to ask or not? I just, from a legal standpoint.
It wouldn't hurt to ask, but we don't have anybody registered.
Okay. And like I said, legal, I just want to make sure we're in bounds. If it doesn't matter, then that's fine too. And I'd like to pull the committee then for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. Swirsky?
Yes.
Kamer?
Aye.
Samples?
Aye.
And Baylor?
Aye.
Thank you, President Somerville. The report of the committee is favorable. We ask for suspension of the rules. This is, as reported by Helen Tomic, the annual consolidated action plan for 2020. This was also discussed during our budget hearing time, and time is of the essence, so we request passage this evening.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor?
Aye.
Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco?
Aye.
Kamer?
Aye.
Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Amobian?
Aye.
Samples?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
Swirsky?
Aye.
This passes 12-0 with one abstention by Neal. Second public hearing for tonight. Notice is hereby given that the following public hearings will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, July 6, 2020, during the special meeting of council at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct an oversized detached garage at 2626 Nesbitt Avenue.
Okay. Thank you so much. I do believe we do have the petitioner who has registered to bring forth comments with us this evening. Daniel Kelly.
Mr. Kelly, are you present? Could you unmute your microphone if you are?
We maybe have a report from Mr. Antonucci.
Here he goes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
I'm going to swear you in just like earlier today. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So first, Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. Daniel Kelly proposes to construct a detached garage measuring 32 feet by 40 feet, containing 1,280 square feet of area. The petitioner's existing garage would be raised and replaced with this new one. The garage would be built to a peak height of 15 feet, 8 inches. It would have vinyl horizontal siding and a color to complement the house. The garage on this large lot will be far enough away from neighboring properties as to not create an imposition. The garage would replace an older garage, which is in disrepair and will be used to store personal residential belongings. Both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Antonucci. Mr. Kelly, do you want to bring forth some comments in support?
Yeah, I had an old garage there. It was kind of dilapidated and I want to tear it down. It was 20 by 20 and I just want to go a little bigger, put my wife's car and my kids' toys in there and my boat and a little workshop in the back. It'll be all residential, no commercial, and a nuisance to nobody.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kelly. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, I'd like to poll the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, Kamer,
Aye.
Swirsky,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Baylor.
Aye.
Yes, thank you, President Somerville. The report of the committee is favorable. We're asking for passage this evening. This is believed to be intrusive in the neighborhood, replacing an existing garage. Ask for passage this evening.
Thank you so much. Councilman Freeman?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to throw my support behind this. Good property, good neighbor, and this will just be a good addition to the neighborhood, and look forward to its passage this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. The next public hearing tonight.
Thank you.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, July 6, 2020, during the special meeting of council at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish an office use in a residence district at 400 South Portage Path.
All right, thank you. And I do believe we have Patrick Bravo and Drew Riley who are going to speak in favor of this ordinance. So at this time, we're just going to have both of you sworn in by a member of our law department.
Thank you. Mr. Bravo and Mr. Riley, do you both swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Madam President, members of council. The Summit County Land Bank, a nonprofit community improvement corporation, proposes to acquire, renovate, and restore the residential structure and grounds of this former John S. Knight House into a permanent office space and parking for the Summit County Land Bank, their staff, and visitors. In addition, future plans include acquisition of a quarter-acre lot currently owned by Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority for additional parking. The renovations will respect and maintain the historic quality of the stucco Tudor-style structure. The circular drive will provide access from South Portage Path to 21 hard surface paved parking spaces in front of and southwest of the building. Future parking for 16 vehicles will be provided south of the building on a lot to be acquired from AMHA. Now, the residence was built in 1921 and was home to Akron Beacon Journal editor John S. Knight. The home has had many owners over the years. Unfortunately, it's been unoccupied for at least 15 years and has fallen into disrepair. The Summit County Land Bank is committed to a plan that preserves and maintains the historical quality and integrity of the existing structure while respecting and complementing the surrounding area. The proposal will not only preserve a historically significant structure, but will provide an amenity for the public and offices for the Summit County Land Bank to continue their essential work for our community. And both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Antonucci. And we actually have the Executive Director for Summit County Land Bank, Patrick Bravo. You want to bring forth comments first?
Thank you, Madam President. We have no additional comments other than to say thank you for all of the support that we've received so far. We're really excited about this project. We're looking forward to beginning work, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you, President Somerville. I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Swirsky?
Aye.
Kamer?
Aye.
Baylor?
Aye.
Samples?
Aye.
Thank you. The report of the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Okay. Any further comments, Councilman Fusco?
No, we all heard the report from the planning department. This particular, which is obviously of historic significance, will be in very good hands whenever it comes to the land bank and Mr. Bravo. Asking for passage this evening.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Thank you. We will now go into our old business, budget and finance. Councilman Freeman.
Yes, committee's report's favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, this piece of legislation will codify our public arts program, and a lot of thanks and a lot of work has gone into this, and we look for its passage. Look forward to its passage this evening.
Thank you so much. At this time, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Thank you. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
Thank you, President Somerville. The first three items are up for public hearing. We're going to ask for time on 4 through and including 7, of which we're going to request that we file items 8 and 9. Those are the petitions for the particular ones that were passed this evening, and we will request time on the balance of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Time will be granted. Public Service, Councilwoman Samples.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. We have items 1, 2, and 3 can all be filed. These are objections.
Okay. Items 1, 2, and 3 will be filed. We'll now move into our new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Freeman. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract without the formality of advertising for bids to purchase video conferencing equipment from Life Size Incorporated for use in the Akron Municipal Court, approving specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report's favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, the city of Akron received a one-time grant from the state of Ohio during the COVID crisis. These monies are going to be used to purchase additional cameras so video conferencing can be available to all the courts within our municipal court. And with that, we ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 2, offered by Freeman. Ordinance amending Title 11 Business Regulations by deleting and eliminating Chapter 113 Weights and Measures of the Akron Codified Ordinances in its entirety. Amending Title 11 Business Regulations, Chapter 111 Regulations Governing Specific Businesses, Article 29 Secondhand Dealers by deleting and eliminating Section 111.492 Inspections and Tests of Weights and Measures of the Akron Codified Ordinances, authorizing the abandonment and transfer of weights and measures related equipment to Summit County and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
13 years ago, the city of Akron turned over most of its weights and measures operation to the county of Summit. There were a few administrative tasks that we were still hanging on to. It does not make good financial sense, nor is it good stewardship to continue in those administrative activities. So with this ordinance will allow us to turn that over to the county. With that, we ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 3, offered by Samples. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract without the formality of advertising for bids to purchase services and equipment from PSX Incorporated to upgrade revenue control equipment at all city-owned parking decks and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. This ordinance will allow them to provide the air conditioning in the gymnasium at Summit Lake, and we're asking for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Offered by Samples, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after receiving proposals, to enter into a contract or contracts for the upgrade of the HVAC system at the Summit Lake Community Center and the management of such project, and declaring an emergency.
I think we just did that one, didn't we?
I read them in opposite. I have number
Oh,
3.
okay.
So I read in the purchasing agent for the PSX Incorporated for revenue controlled
Okay.
equipment.
So
That's
my
what I just did.
response was definitely not the
Sorry.
right response. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Madam President.
Yes.
You.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Samples, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So the committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules?
No, so I have nothing further. We're asking for passage.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 5, offered by Samples. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service through the Office of the Purchasing Agent, without the formality of advertising for bids, to enter into a contract with ProTech Oil Field Services to plug and abandon city gas wells numbers 9 and 13, and to remove the surface equipment from city gas well number 3, approving the specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report, we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Madam President. As we spoke to earlier today, these gas wells are no longer needed or in use, and we're asking for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 6, offered by Samples. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for a loan, execute necessary documents, and enter into water pollution control loan fund agreements with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and the Ohio Water Development Authority for the planning of Northside Sewer Separation and Conveyance Program Management on behalf of the city, and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Madam President. Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 7, offered by Swirsky, ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts with Milestone Solutions LLC to purchase video surveillance software licensing for use at the Akron Water Plant and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Swirsky.
Committee voted to approve this and is asking for suspension of the rules this evening.
Thank you. Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Councilman Swirsky, do you have any further comments?
Well, just this is important equipment that will increase the efficiency and security at the water treatment plant. Thank you.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor? Roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 8, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for funding from the 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program administered through the U.S. Department of Justice to provide funding for costs associated with preventing, preparing for, and responding to the coronavirus public health emergency, authorizing an agreement for the acceptance and expenditure of grant funding consistent with the CESF program and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable and we're asking for suspension of the rules, please.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. If awarded, this is roughly $403,000 that the city can use to continue to fight the coronavirus that our Akron Police Department works around and responds to and can prepare for. Thanks.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Okay. Thank you so much. We will now go to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. Just a reminder, anyone may participate at this portion in time of our meeting by simply submitting a written request to publiccomment@akronohio.gov. And at this time, we're going to ask the clerk to read in our public comments for this evening.
This is from Morgan Melendrez. The city of Cincinnati recently awarded Tanco Lighting for the ownership and conversion streetlight bid for the city's transition to energy efficient LED technology. If a similar project would be approved by the council, the city of Akron would realize a financial savings of $1,100,000 a year when compared to a utility-led conversion. This model of conversion is also being explored by Warren as a way to reduce long-term costs while improving public safety. We encourage Akron to join Cincinnati to realize the benefits of streetlight ownership and an LED streetlight conversion. Thank you for your time and consideration. This is from Nicholas Cassiopo. Dear council members, President Somerville, and Mayor Horrigan. First, in regards to council's past actions supporting the denial of parole for ARC mail sales, I ask that council members take time to genuinely consider what justice ought to look like in this instance. As you discuss matters of systemic racism in the coming weeks and months, do not forget that the carceral system is the site of perpetual dehumanization and racial violence. Council members interested in real solutions to matters of injustice beyond mere lip service should genuinely consider what restorative and transformative approaches to justice would look like. The murder of Myrtle Grace Rittenauer is tragic, and her family absolutely deserves justice and peace. I only question whether caging, dehumanizing, and abandoning people offers any sort of justice or accountability. Considering that prisons perpetuate violence and harm, how do they and other criminal justice solutions reduce crime in any meaningful way? How do systems create meaningful paths for justice, accountability, transformation, and redemption? How do these institutions function as anything other than a Band-Aid at best and a site of regular harm at worst? Second, I ask that council and the mayor seriously consider following the leadership of other Ohio cities by mandating the wearing of masks in public spaces and at businesses open to the public. Caution should absolutely be taken to ensure certain communities are not wrongly charged nor over-policed. I caution council members who favor listening to both sides with respect to this proposal. Arguments about choice and freedom are made in bad faith, disregard proven scientific and medical expert advice, and are actively harmful to community members. Considering COVID-19 disproportionately harms Black people, the elderly, and other vulnerable populations, it is a dereliction of duty to not take steps to ensure these communities are adequately protected. Third, as an Akron resident with a rich Italian-American history, I find it appalling that most council members failed to consider the perspectives of Indigenous and African American people in your decision to change Columbus Day to Italian American Heritage and Culture Day. Council has had years to genuinely listen to these historically oppressed people, and yet only Councilman Neal seems to genuinely care. Columbus Day has never been about celebrating Italian heritage. It has always been about erasing the gruesome, violent, and bloody history of the colonization, genocide, and enslavement of Indigenous and African peoples. Even more egregious is the fact that some council members continue to perpetuate revisionist and ahistorical perspectives that actively harm and add to the erasure of Black and Indigenous experiences. Coincidentally, this provides an excellent opportunity to address the false historical perspectives taught in our schools, and many people continue to hold as fact. I ask council to genuinely consider how you have failed multiple oppressed communities with this vote. Lastly, I ask council members to continue to ponder the intricacies of what defunding the police actually means and where such a demand stems from. I ask that council steer clear of, that is the end of the 3 minutes. This is from Michelle McNeil. Thank you for taking up the issue of requiring masks to be worn in public. I and my extended family of 14 adults are wholeheartedly in support of such a measure. We are already wearing masks anytime we're outside our homes or cars and are dismayed by the number of people who are ignoring this very simple safety measure. Please pass this measure as quickly as possible and help stop the spread of COVID-19. This is from Brett Nicola. Dear Akron Councilperson, I have heard that the city is considering a mandatory mask wearing ordinance. I want to let you know that I do not support such a mandate. Citizens need the freedom to make their own decisions regarding their health. Scientific research shows that masks do not protect against the spread of viruses and introduce additional health dangers. Before supporting an arbitrary law, I ask that you consider the whole picture, including the unknown consequences of mask wearing, such as, do used masks become sources of enhanced transmission for the wearer and others? Do masks become collectors and retainers of pathogens that the mask wearer would otherwise avoid when breathing without a mask? Are large droplets captured by a mask atomized into breathable components? What are the dangers of bacterial growth on a used mask? How do pathogen-laden droplets interact with environmental dust and aerosols captured on the mask? What are long-term health effects such as headaches arising from impeded breathing? Are there negative social consequences to a masked society? Are there negative psychological consequences to wearing a mask as a fear-based behavioral modification? What are the environmental consequences of mask manufacturing and disposal? Do the masks shed fibers or substances that are harmful when inhaled? What health problems could arise from rebreathing one's own exhaled breath and high CO2 levels? What are the consequences for people with existing health problems like asthma or allergies? Who is going to enforce such a law? How is this enforcement going to be paid for? How will the local economy be affected? Will people choose to do business in places with no restrictions? The city should not make policies that have a potential to cause harm. Instead, the individual citizen needs to be able to weigh the pros and cons of this private health issue and make their own personal decisions on when, where, and why they choose to wear a mask. A link is provided for additional information. This is from Larissa Blaze. Council members, happy Independence Day. Please protect individuals' rights and abilities to make their own health decisions. The science behind masking is inclusive and in fact shows more negative effects than positive. Therefore, each individual citizen needs to determine what is best for themselves and family. Do not mandate masking. Please uphold the Constitution and freedoms. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. This is from Sonia Lemon. Sonia Zakowski. To whom it concerns, please stop with the mask mandates. Mandates of this kind do not belong in a free society when the implications of wearing said mask for long periods of time or in the hot weather, etc., can be harmful. You can advise the public, but to mandate this is not right. Some science says they are helpful and some science says they aren't and may cause harm. Therefore, it needs to be up to the individual. Please consider what the residents of Ohio want. There are more things to consider than just the COVID situation. I thank you for taking the time to read this and consider many have no interest in this. Furthermore, what is the end goal? When will we no longer have to mask? The original ask in all this was to lower the curve and burden on the hospitals, not to prevent any individual anywhere ever again from contracting this virus. Adam Kern says, please require all residents in Akron to wear masks while in public. Thank you. Masks are proven to prevent the spread of COVID-19, which is disproportionately affecting communities of color. Alyssa says, in the absence of a robust public health response, primarily due to minimal public health funding, a mandatory mask ordinance is the least we can do to keep Akron safe. Angela Brown says, good afternoon. Since there's an increase of cases of the virus, I agree that face masks should be required to all public places to stop the spread and increase of cases of the virus. Angela Greth says masks are a simple, inexpensive, and effective tool to fight COVID-19's rampant spread. Unfortunately, not all folks agree with this, hence our monstrous rate of infection. Please require mandatory masks in Akron. April Gurowitz says, this really shouldn't be a debatable item. This virus is highly contagious and very damaging. I'm sorry, Athena Go says this. This virus is highly contagious and very damaging to the body, whether you live or die from it. The only way to avoid shutdown is to mandate masks in public. You really will save lives, and people will remember that you took decisive action, like our governor sort of has, to save the lives of the people you're serving in public office. This is a historical opportunity to set precedents for public health and for encouraging citizens to care for others around them. You know people won't do it if you don't set a rule. There are so many people out there not wearing them and not taking this issue seriously. And furthermore, some of these non-mask wearing citizens verbally or even physically attack or spit on others who are wearing masks. Please do not hesitate. We can keep our economy open if people will just wear a simple piece of cloth to reduce the spread. We should have been doing this sort of thing all along. Until people get used to the idea of caring for others around them voluntarily for the sake of public health, mandating masks is akin to enforcing wearing safety belts and obeying traffic laws. It's life-saving, and for some it takes being ordered to do something before they understand the significance. If there is any hesitation in your heart about being stuck inside a room packed with citizens who won't wear a mask, if that scenario makes you uncomfortable, make it in order to wear the masks. You are at risk of risking the health of those of us trying to protect ourselves and others by using masks. We can only do so much to protect our health if no one else is helping. Thank you. We also received the name of Brianne Olson. Cassie LePerry says masks are crucial to keeping our COVID-19 cases down. It's sad that people have to be mandated to care about others, but it seems our political climate has set the stage for this. I support Tara and I hope you do too. Kathy Hedrick says, I wear a mask because I care about the well-being of my fellow citizens. Celeste Hallam says, please make wearing a mask compulsory. The virus numbers have not increased dramatically as they have in other states. So let's stop that from happening. I love the art initiative too. Shelley Moyer says, please protect the health and livelihood of our residents and those who work and shop in the city by passing this simple measure. It will prevent untold suffering and the needless deaths, as well as businesses having to close again because of the virus. It's simple, it's effective, and it's the right thing to do. Chanel Moore says, we must do what is right. Our lives depend on it. Until the battle is won, we must protect ourselves as well as everyone around us. Charity Armour says, I care about making masks mandatory in Akron because I have elderly parents there. My mother works in the public and I worry about her every day. Sherry Dudley. Christopher Blue McMahon says, as a person who watches COVID patients die on a daily basis and wears an N95 for 8 to 14 hours when at work, I give you my word, masks are life-saving. Masks do not lower our oxygen levels and certainly prevents the spread of germs. Vote to make masks mandatory in all public places. let Akron be the leading city to lower Summit County curve. Ward 7 is watching your vote. Crystal Weems says, please make masks mandatory. Our numbers are going up. You cannot open up and think the virus is going to go away. We have to have precautions in place. Daniel Figueroa says, I care about masks because I care about people. The science is abundantly clear and shows that wearing masks helps to reduce the risk of the spread of coronavirus. We need to be at the forefront of a discourse and change for the safety of all Ohioans, especially those of us here in Akron. Please listen to Tara Samples and the rest of us Akronites when we voice our concerns over this issue. In fact, it shouldn't be an issue. Making the decision to require masks in public settings should be as easy as, well, putting on a mask. Danielle Lauer says we need a mask mandate in public, open air, and private spaces in Akron. So many people don't think they are necessary or believe in the science. We need leadership to take action now and pass Ms. Samples' mandatory mask legislation ASAP. Debbie Clapp says, please, it's a simple thing to do to protect others. Diane Erdely. Edward Petrinsky says, hello, Mayor. I just want to take a minute to thank you for all you do and our brothers in blue for Akron. You may want to look into a person named Sage Lewis. All he does is slander you and all your men, cursing and defaming you guys. Yet he wants to help with his homeless charity that he steals money from. His Facebook account is filled with hate. God bless you all. Elizabeth Lancians. Fred Pierre says, masks save lives, plain and simple. Heather Hildenbrand says, dear elected leaders of Akron, as a person who lives and works in the city, I think following best public health practices is essential to maintaining the health and safety of all. Despite workplace guidelines, I'm regularly exposed to people who don't wear masks indoors through the course of my workday at Akron Public Schools. As schools reopen, this could be deadly for some students and staff. I'm also disappointed by the lack of masks being worn by patrons at local businesses and do not feel safe conducting normal activities. Businesses will be unable to recover if people do not feel safe patronizing them. Yet business policies without legal backing are difficult to enforce. I'm particularly concerned for local workers who are regularly exposed to patrons who do not wear masks. Passing legislation requiring masks is the best way to protect the most people until a vaccine becomes available. I applaud Councilwoman Samples for proposing legislation to do so and urge other elected officials to support it. Thank you. Heather Johnson says, with phase 1 never complete, yet increasing numbers of COVID cases, we need to make it mandatory to wear masks. People's interest is waning, and seeing others in masks reinforces that we all need to remain vigilant against the pandemic. Isaac Kelly says, hi, I trust you will all pass ordinance to require masks in public places because I trust you are all decent people with the best interests of the citizenry in mind. Jordan Smith says, wearing a mask saves everyone's lives. This needs to be mandatory everywhere. Judy Copen says masks and social distancing are necessary to stop the spread of COVID. Carolyn Board says, I shouldn't have to explain why I care about having an ordinance requiring masks in public places, but the reason is 1, I don't want to get sick. I don't want my family to get sick. 2, every reasonable medical professional, including those chosen by the state of Ohio and the federal government, say that wearing masks greatly reduces susceptibility. Number 3, unfortunately, the governor's faith in Ohioans to do the right thing to protect others by wearing masks was unfounded, as evidenced by the many, many people I see daily without one. Please do the right thing to protect all Ohioans. Kathleen McCann says the essence of a community is that we are all together to provide safety and security. At this point, masks are a needed piece of armor to do that. Kathy Hale says it's the right thing to do. All lives matter. Kelly Lunsford says the only way to slow this down is wearing a mask. It is not political. COVID doesn't discriminate. Kevin Board says, please do the right thing and lead our community in the right direction. Peace and thanks. Kevin Ingram. Laura Evans. Lauren Delgado says, science speaks for itself. Masks prevent transmission of COVID. I go to work every day wearing a mask, and I'd say only 10 to 15% of customers are wearing masks when they come into our building. All the while, they are complaining about the mask situation. It is mandatory that I have to wear one to protect them, and I would even if it wasn't mandatory. Why don't they have to protect me? It isn't working with just one person. Both need to be wearing masks. It is so easy to do too, and I say that as a person that spends most of my day working in an unair-conditioned warehouse and in the sun helping customers with curbside pickups. Something has to be done or we will continue to lose more Akron lives, all because it is now become a political issue instead of a public safety issue. Linda Somerville says people are not following CDC guidelines and putting all of us at risk for COVID-19. My husband and I are responsible Republicans and feel strongly it is in everyone's interest to wear a mask. Lisa Benton says, please consider mandatory masks in Akron. Our lives depend on it. Also, people with breathing issues should still be required to wear a face shield unless that is also not possible. This would help the spread of COVID-19 even more. Lisa Schaefer says we need to continue to practice safe measures by wearing masks. When I do go out in public, I am one of the very few that do wear masks. For the safety of myself and that of the rest of Akron, I am in support of this ordinance. Margaret Bradford. Maxine Peterson says masks in public protect our citizens. Melissa Longfellow says we all know that masks and social distancing are how we stop the spread of COVID-19. Leaving it up to stores to mandate and force is a cowardly move. Do the responsible thing for Akron and mandate masks in public. Michael Monaco says I live in Ward 8 and I and some of my loved ones are at high risk for the worst effects of COVID-19. I see people without masks everywhere when I make trips to the store for supplies. We all need to wear masks to protect each other from the virus. Please make masks mandatory. We know that this has made a huge difference in countries where masks are universal. Please ask all Akronites to wear masks. Michael North says, please make masks in Akron mandatory. We can no longer assume people will make the smart and scientifically backed decision to wear them of their own accord, mask it or casket. Michelle Fleetwood says, so these numbers can go down and we can be safe, especially Nicholas Cassiopo says, especially in light of Summit County Public Health's recent figures on overall mask usage by county residents and considering spikes in COVID cases, it is imperative that masks be made mandatory so that we can protect the most vulnerable among us. Though I disagree with excessive fines or penalties, a simple warning or denial of service is enough in my opinion. I completely support the city's right to impose this mandate. This is a public health crisis and should be dealt with as such. Ollie Jones says, Mayor Horgan, please be on the cutting edge and support and approve the why you care about living saving masks in Akron. Keep our great city safe. Stand with the people who depend on you to take care of the people in this city. Thank you for working hard for the city and caring. Paul Teagle says, I live with my 93-year-old mother-in-law. Masks can only work if everyone wears one. Rachel Quinlan says, Dear Mayor, I support Councilwoman Sample's ordinance for the folks in the city of Akron to mandatorily wear masks when out in public. I am all for protecting myself and my family first and foremost, and I'm also for not putting others at risk. Please take this into strong consideration. Thank you for all you do for the city. Much appreciated. Rose Reed says, Mr. Mayor, this is the right thing to do. The proposed art initiative is great. How are we going to keep people safe as it moves forward? Support Councilwoman Samples. Do the right thing for Akron. Sage Lewis says, please support the ordinance to require masks in Akron. We are a city that cares about our own and want to be part of a positive, healthy initiative. Sarah Washington says, we have seen such huge spikes in coronavirus cases this past week. Please consider making masks mandatory. You will have those who whine and complain, but the majority of Akronites would rather keep their fellow people safe. Sharon Berg says, masking clearly is necessary if we are to limit the loss of life from COVID-19. Please make it mandatory. Make Akron as safe as possible. Sharon Brown says, please pass this bill, mask in all public places. I lost an uncle to this deadly virus. Thank you. Stephanie Baker says, mandate safety for all. Public health is one of the most important issues at the moment, and we are failing through weak leadership. Steve Somerville says, safety and security for all. One way to prevent another shutdown and keep the economy going. T. Smith says, mandate masks. Left to their own devices, people will not do the right thing unless made to. It would need to carry a significant enough penalty to deter people, and it would need to be strictly enforced. Mandate masks now, please. Tamara Cummings says, masks are critical and necessary to stopping the spread of COVID-19. Some residents simply do not care about the welfare and well-being of other residents, so it needs to be mandated. Tara Somerville says, please require all City of Akron residents to wear masks in public. Taryn Bell says, wearing a mask is so important because it protects others from you. We need this mandatory because so many people feel that they don't have a responsibility to others, which is beyond wrong. What about our immune compromised population? Does their life matter? What are we saying to them by allowing people the option to spread infectious disease? Tim Shannon says this is the only real way we can look out for one another during the pandemic. Recommending it isn't working. We need to do this to slow the spread of the disease, please. Titus Scott. Vicky Armstrong says, I am urging Mayor Horgan to mandate masks to be worn in public in the city of Akron. If he refuses to do that immediately, then I urge every council person to support Councilwoman Tara Sample's legislation requiring it. Thank you, Tara, for trying to do something to help the citizens of Akron. Winter Reed says, please make mask wearing mandatory in public. Too many people simply do not understand or refuse to believe how serious this virus really is. People are dying and a simple mask can stop it. If we really want to protect our people and get our businesses back open for good, this needs to happen. I'm old enough to remember when seatbelts became mandatory, and the same people screaming about their civil liberties then are mad now, but their voices are amplified on social media. Don't let the children in adult clothing dictate your actions. Do what makes sense. Zach Friedoff says, masks are the least we can all do until the pandemic is over. The inconvenience of wearing a mask when out in a public place around people is a very minor sacrifice that could be literally saving lives. The governor has tried to simply ask people to wear them, and people are not. As the Beacon reported, only about 15 to 25% are wearing the masks. It is going to take some stronger effort. This is time for leadership. Leadership is doing the hard thing because it will help and save people. This is not time for popularity contests. This is from Reverend Gregory Harrison. Dear President Somerville and members of council, my name is Reverend Gregory Harrison, and I am a lifelong resident of Akron. I am sending this letter asking Akron City Council members to play a greater role in leading the city of Akron. As a resident, I voice my concerns and any neighborhood problems to my ward council person, with an expectation that my voice will be heard by all members of council. Akron City Council, being the legislative branch of our charter system of government, should be conducting business on behalf of the citizens and not co-signing every whim of the mayor. This letter is not criticism of Mayor Horgan. Previously co-signed legislation from other mayors has left our city morally and financially bankrupt. I was very disappointed by the information that Mayor Horgan released regarding what had been done and is being done in the area of police reform. It was a collection of praise and infomercials about the greatness of our police department. Akron City Council has to rely on the appointed positions of safety director, police auditor, chief of police, and the law director to provide information. Because of this practice, the council isn't knowledgeable about many items because your base level information comes from the mayor and his appointed staff. The Elevate Akron report has acknowledged the fact that African Americans have been excluded from opportunities. How does this happen? It happens by way of systemic institutionalized racism. The power structure, the mayor's office, has historically staffed rooms with handpicked Black faces, too many of whom have no intentions of speaking to issues of disparity, racism, or having frank discussions when it comes to equity. They were picked with this in mind. Their participation is to pacify people and help protect the status quo. If we are acknowledging that racism is a public health crisis, how can the same oppressive system now become the solution? I am asking the Akron City Council to be part of the solution. Please restore yourselves to creating legislation independent of the monarchy that exists in Akron. A legislative body working independent of the mayor can help to eradicate the racist policies that currently exist. An independent council can be a powerful tool in dismantling aggressions and the many microaggressions forced on people of color by dominant power groups and political allies of these power groups. All lives can't matter until we are comfortable saying Black Lives Matter. The last one is from Cheryl Schweitzer. Can we please pass legislation that wearing a mask is mandatory within the city of Akron? I've missed a few days here and there, but these are the statistics from the State of Ohio COVID-19 website. Nothing will get better, the economy of Akron or the safety of our citizens, until we do the very least, and that would be to require masks, with the exception of those that are prohibited from wearing a mask due to other extenuating health concerns. Thank you in advance.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We will now move into our committee assignments. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Rules, Councilman Freeman.
2:30.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Neal.
1:45.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Service, Councilwoman Samples.
2 p.m.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
215.
Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco.
Subject to call.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Sworsky.
230.
Thank you. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilwoman Samples?
Thank you, Madam President. Briefly, I just want to let my colleagues know that the legislation that I am proposing for mandatory face masks, I should have the draft back from the law department this week. I do plan on sending it to each and every one of you to look over, and any questions that you have ahead of time, I'd ask for you to get back with me. Dayton, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati have thus far passed them for their municipalities. Those are just municipalities here in the state of Ohio. 21 states have already passed mandatory laws, their governors have, for mandatory face masks in their states. That includes the state of Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, New Mexico, Texas, Hawaii, Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky, Maine, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New York. As we've seen over the weekend, the surge that they've had in Texas, Arizona, and Florida, that we do have a problem. They've showed beaches with our young people who have crowded them with no regard for this disease. In fact, they've even talked about some of these young people having coronavirus parties with a pot of money to see whomever gets it first wins the money. These are young people who have no regard, obviously, for their parents and grandparents. As someone who has two health issues, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about how I move across the city because I don't want to get my parents sick. I've had an aunt who's had it. I've had a family member who's passed from it. And I have a son who's incarcerated who had it. And this is not a joke. And I'm hoping that we all really take some time to really look at it. We here in the state of Ohio, we're a little over 100,000, not Ohio, in the United States. We're less than 100,000 cases away from having 4 million people here in the United States test positive. Over 130,000 people have died. Summit County alone is in the top 10 of the cases in the state of Ohio. We are in the top 7 of people who have tested positive. So let me take that back. We are in the top 10 of deaths and the top 10 of positive cases in the state of Ohio. And I think we really need to think about that. All this information is there. I say all the time, men lie, women lie, but the numbers don't lie. I check this website every single day because I am very concerned by what is going on. And if that means for us to put on a simple mask, like the CDC has said, like Dr. Funchi has said, until we get a hold on it, it's a mask. I know a lot of people are talking about people with underlying health issues. I have asthma. I wear my mask every single day and it has yet to affect me. I keep my inhaler with me. The heat is more of an issue for me than my mask. So I want to make sure that I get this to you all to look it over, and please contact me if you have questions or concerns prior to our next Monday meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Samples. Councilman Freeman?
Yes, I wanted to, customarily don't do this, but Madam Chair, I wanted to address one of the first letters that was read, and it seems to bring into question this council's action in the past of writing to the parole board in regards to ARC mail sales. And the writer asked us to genuinely consider what justice would look like in this matter, and then went on to for us to think about systemic racism. And I would just remind the council, and I would remind the gentleman that wrote the letter, when Miss Rittenauer was murdered that night, I was there. And this wasn't just a murder, it was a slaughter. Her body was punctured 17 times by a screwdriver. So when someone writes in and says they want us to consider our past actions of writing to deny his support and wondering what justice looks like city council protecting our constituents from someone like Mr. Sales. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. Councilman Malik?
Thank you. I just want to echo Councilwoman Sample's comments. And, we've seen over the last few weeks, the cases of COVID-19 sort of start to rise in places where it had been pretty low. And we've seen other cities across Ohio and other states take this step to require face masks. Since the beginning of this crisis, we've had our leaders from Dr. Fauci to Governor DeWine, Dr. Acton, Mayor Horrigan, our health commissioner, Donna Scotta, and many of the people around this horseshoe have recommended and urged people to wear face masks. And it's not just for the safety of the people who are wearing it; it's for the safety of those we come into contact with. And obviously, our rights are important, but they end when they begin to impact the safety and health of other people. And wherever feasible, we know that we should be wearing masks. And I just wanted to say, with respect to enforcement, I do think that it's something that, ought to be considered obviously very carefully. We want to make sure that we are setting expectations about proper behavior and setting out the rules of the road, but we also don't want to be heavy-handed. We recognize that there are people with underlying medical conditions, that sometimes these kinds of we've seen these kinds of enforcements fall more heavily on people of color. And so we want to make sure people can obtain masks. So I hope these are things that we consider over the next week and have a chance to review Councilwoman Sample's legislation and work with the administration on this. But I definitely hope it's something that we can implement to stay ahead of this curve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Malik. Councilman Swirsky?
Yeah, like a lot of the comments that were said earlier, I'm also was very disappointed and surprised at how few people are actually wearing masks out there. And it really comes down to thinking about others as importantly as your own rights, and thinking about the fact that we are in a public health crisis. And we are in a public health crisis with a completely incompetent and misdirected response coming from the federal government. We have a very weak response at this point coming from the state government, but that isn't really new to us as local government officials. It's time again for us to step up, and I'm confident that we are going to handle all the issues of enforcement, of legal problems, and we're going to find something that we all can agree on and support. And it's time for Akron City government to step up and confront this crisis. Mandating masks, as a lot of the letter writers pointed out, is something that is critical, necessary, and essential for the welfare of our residents who we were sent here to represent. And the public's interest is really everybody's business, and we're going to get on it.
Thank you, Councilman Swirsky. Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to briefly ask the administration to get a response for me in regards to the press release that came out today in regards to the outdoor pools and splash pads that are now open in the city of Akron. With the 2 pools and the splash pads, obviously the mayor is asking anyone that is not swimming to wear masks. He's asking individuals to wear masks. Now, if Akron City Council mandates these masks to be worn, I want to know from the administration who's going to enforce these on city-owned property? And then also, do we have the budget to make sure that we are doing our part, our city-owned property, that we're making sure that people are wearing masks and we're enforcing that? So I like the administration to give me their opinion moving forward, obviously with the press release today. If city council mandates, do we have the power, the enough employees, and the budget to go out there and make sure on our own city properties that we're able to make sure people are wearing masks? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. pretty much echo most of what folks have said. But most communities are passing this legislation, and then they're going behind it and figure out, how they're going to enforce it. I'd like for us to do our due diligence. I don't think this is something that can be done in a 15-minute period. We have to find out how we're going to equitably enforce this, how we're going to make masks available to those communities that don't have them. I know people want them. I was fortunate to have the Pride community distribute masks in my ward, and I was able to work with them and State Rep Tavia Galansky, and people were very receptive. But not everybody has access to masks. And I know people were calling and reporting on businesses and other things. We have to make sure that we can develop equitable policy. We talk about this all the time, but this is another opportunity for us to do this. So, I'm hoping that when the legislation comes together, we could take the time as a council to make sure that we put together solid policy that can be equitably enforced throughout our community. Because what I don't want to see happen, through the 4th of July, I drove through, and there were plenty of people having cookouts and, doing things. What those folks do is, in their yards, on their property. And I had neighbors calling with concern about folks that were having parties. But it's up to this body to figure out how we're going to legislate that and how we're going to enforce it. As Councilman Kamer said, the budget standpoint is one thing. I'm more so concerned about putting policy together that can actually be enforced equitably.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Is there anyone else who has a comment? I do see Councilwoman Samples. If there's no one else, we'll go back to Councilwoman Samples.
Thank you, Madam President. Just briefly, when you get the legislation, it addresses a lot of you guys' concerns. This is not something that just happened overnight. I've been working on this piece of legislation since April 24th with the law department. So it wasn't something that just came out overnight. We've been working on it and going back and forth with the pros and cons, whether it should be civil or criminal, what the fine would be. And then Dayton's piece came out. So we wanted to look at Dayton's and all the other municipalities to make sure that we crossed our T's and dotted our I's in ways that they didn't, because there was questions about how it would be enforced. I have spoken with Donna Skota extensively about this and about the enforcement part of it. And again, as soon as the legislation comes, for us all to put our eyes on it and making sure all those questions and concerns that everybody has are addressed in there.
Councilman Swirsky?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce thank you to the people who wrote letters to us tonight in support of mandating the mask. We hear you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Swirsky. At this time, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second.